If you do plan to make a public comment this evening, please fill out a comment card and give it to Mr. Aquilina at this time if you have not already done so. I would ask that everyone silence their cell phones and remove their hats as we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Aquilina, can we do a roll call, please?
Sheena.
Here.
Murphy.
Present.
Montague.
Present.
Baker.
Present.
Hanson.
Present.
Haney. And Luck.
Present. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Nate Aquilina as recording secretary for this evening's meeting.
So moved.
Support. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Aquilina, for being here and taking on this role this evening. I would like to, we need a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Support. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda as presented. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, up first this evening, as always, are our reports, and we will start with the superintendent this evening.
Thank you and welcome everybody. Just a couple things to follow up on graduation. Again, congratulations to the class of 2024. On Sunday, June 2nd, we added 207 students to the Linden Community Schools Alumni Registry. Thank you to the Linden High School administration, Greg Badez, Dan Lamoth, Todd Bishop, Chris Powell, Mike Callard, and a host of volunteers, including student and parents, who made sure Sunday's ceremony was on point. On behalf of Linden Community Schools, I would like to thank our PALS group and other parent community volunteers who supported our students to make this an unforgettable year. Thank you. Learning never ends. On Monday, our Curriculum Instruction and Assessment Department, led by Ms. Cheryl Thomas, provided 35 staff members with professional development on a balanced assessment system. Yesterday, Linden Community Schools had 70 staff members take advantage of Curriculum Camp. During Curriculum Camp this year, educators took the opportunity to work together on the development of curriculum and their corresponding assessments. Yes, we are already preparing for the 24-25 school year. And then last but not least, summer school. Linden Community School summer school begins on Monday, June 10th. Currently, we have about 160 students, K-8, who are already enrolled. And again, our summer school does operate a little differently. Over the years, we've kind of transformed summer school into just an extension of our normal school year and focused on enrichment opportunities for our students. That's all I have.
All right, thank you very much, Russ. I see Lizzie Story down there, our student representative. We don't have Lizzie on the agenda this evening, but did you have any reports for us?
Well, I mean, just as summer started, we're all super excited at graduation. I was there and it went very well and everything seemed to go great like we said.
Nice, very good. Well, thank you for continuing to join us throughout the summer months. You certainly do not have to, but it's a pleasure to see you always, so thank you for being here. Okay, do any board members have reports this evening? Mrs. Shana?
I just want to say thank you for the last 12 years. We're going on 12 years. I made a commitment to Linden schools and to the community that I would give my 100%. I was able to do something my dad did with me, and that was hand my boys their diplomas like my father did for me, with situations, new job further away, and also purchasing a house outside of Linden community schools. I am officially stepping down after this meeting tonight. So tonight will be my last meeting with everyone. And I thank everyone for almost 12 years.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. I know this was not an easy decision for you to make, but as things change in our life, so must other responsibilities. So thank you for your service to the district, your commitment as a board member. We will certainly miss you, but we appreciate everything you've done for Linden. So, all right, any other board member reports? Okay, you can't resign too, Steve. You got something different? Yeah. Otherwise, I'm closing it down.
I got something better.
All right.
I just want to echo some of the statements that have been made about graduation. I think it was a tough call with the weather, and I think they made a great call. it was changing on the fly right up to, a day before. I was watching my weather forecast, and I'm sure the brain trust here was doing the same. And I think, as it turned out, obviously they made the perfect call, because Saturday night would not have been good, and Sunday was perfect. In the sense that the sun wasn't beating on us, the nice little cloud deck came rolling in there, and put a little mister like you get when you go to those amusement parks and you go, and this was well. But other than that, it was perfect. I appreciated the speeches by Mrs. Elmer and Mr. Montague. I think they're on point. I think the graduates should benefit from their wisdom. And just congratulations to the class of 2024. And I hope that they apply everything they learned here in Linden for 13 years. Thank you.
Very good. Anything else? Mr. Montague?
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Luck. After graduation, I was able to be a part of private graduation, so thank you to everyone that is a large event that I've never been a part of, and you can obviously see a lot of work goes into that, but it's really valuable for the kids, and obviously it's really important for them to have something to do after graduation, so that was a really fun event. And I also wanted to mention that on May 16th, Ms. Hanson, Ms. Shane, and I attended a event as a part of the Genesee County Association of School Boards, and there was a presentation on the Genesee health system, and they're talking a lot about a mental health millage that has gone through. It's about $10 million, and there's a lot of different ways that money is being spent in the community. And I think they sent out a presentation to everybody, but one of the things that really caught my attention was that they actually have 2 people that are riding along with police officers in Flint, and they claim that they have been able to divert 900 calls from someone that normally would have gone to jail and kind of de-escalated a mental health crisis. And so they consider that to be a big success, and they're actually planning on hiring 4 more people so that ultimately they can have mental health professionals riding along with police officers on all 3 shifts kind of around the clock. And then if that continues to go well and there's a need in the broader Genesee County, they want to expand that. But yeah, there's also some mental health facilities that are going in, and also some resources for the schools. So it's great to see that millage is getting used in a really positive way. So, thank you.
Very good. Anything else? All right, I will just echo the sentiment and congrats to all the graduates. I agree with everything Mr. Murphy said about the graduation ceremony. I think everything went really well, and it was a good decision to move the day and time. And I thank Mr. Montague for addressing the graduates on behalf of the board. I think your message was awesome and was very well received. So, all right, we will move along to the best part of any board meeting, which is student recognition. And I always mention to the high school students is I always feel like it's a really big honor to be like the only high school student to be honored as Student of the Month, because in the younger grades they look per classroom and that's still a big honor, but when you're the only student out of the entire high school, that really is something special. So great work, and good luck to everything that you work towards in the future. You're welcome. All right, first up on our agenda this evening is Mr. Dreasky with some administrative updates on the Merit Curriculum. And I will mention this as well, just for Lily and Mom. Usually at this point we pause in case anybody's here for Student of the Month. You're welcome to step out quietly. You're also welcome to stay for the full meeting. It's always riveting. But thank you for being here. If you have other things to do this evening, that's fine.
Should make Nolan stop. Thank you.
Congratulations. And before I get going, I just want to reiterate and give my thanks to Michelle for her service to Linden Community Schools, Linden School, having your kids go through. So your time here has been much appreciated, so thank you. On to Linden High School and the Michigan Merit Curriculum. I think this is a pretty good time to kind of give you a quick overview and update. Hopefully you had a chance to look at it. With some of the new legislation that has just passed with our incoming 9th graders. But just a couple of things that, just to make sure, hopefully bring some comfort to you guys as to what we are doing at the high school in conjunction with what MDE and the Merit Curriculum and what our, trying to tie into the strategic plan and all of those good things and how we're trying to do that at the high school level. So hopefully we get that across in just looking at some of the facts quickly, taking away some of the things with what the Michigan Merit Curriculum is. It may not be what you think, because traditionally, not too long ago, we had all of our department heads up here, and we were having asked you to approve curriculum at the school level. So this is a little bit different. Hopefully I'm able to explain it a little bit and what the differences are. But the first thing I wanted to say, on the left side of the screen there, Michigan Merit Curriculum, the MDE, provides kind of a profile of what a graduate is. And on the right side is what our district's mission and vision is. And those 5 indicators on the left, I think fit nicely into, as you read through, what the mission is and what the vision of Linden Community Schools is. I think we cover that pretty well on what that profile of graduate is and what they get once they come through, and they are, as of Sunday, a Linden High School graduate. I don't want to read this verbatim, but there was a couple of takeaways when I saw this. The personalization, the acceleration, the flexibility, and it's our responsibility to implement those graduation requirements. In another slide or two, I'll get to a point where what that Michigan Merit Curriculum is. But when I look at those 3 bold words there, I think we do a pretty good job of hitting all of those 3 things for our students at the high school. Again, don't want to read this verbatim. Basically, the takeaway from here is our responsibility, that last bulleted line there, is to give students the opportunity to learn the content outlined in the standards that are presented by the MDE. So for example, again, moving forward a little bit, I use science as an example, just an example of creating those standards and benchmarks of what our staff, what they go through with Mrs. Thomas's curriculum, instruction, leadership, what you guys, what you approved when we come and say, okay, we want you to approve this curriculum for science or math or whatever. They do a fantastic job of digging into those things to make sure that our curriculum is meeting not only what that bottom line standard is, but we go above and beyond to make sure that our students that go through Linden High School get the best that they can. Again, the requirements, there are, according to the Michigan Merit Curriculum, there's 18 required credits or what they expect. We go above and beyond that. There's a slide in here that shows you how we go above and beyond. Our graduates are required to have 23 total credits. So that's the Michigan Merit Curriculum plus some of the things that we require them as far as elective courses and some of those opportunities outside of the Michigan Merit Curriculum as well. And this is an example of the science, the flexibility there, and I'll get into it a little bit more with the Michigan Merit Curriculum science, basically the science standards. So our science department will unpack those 71 science standards into those science courses. We have testing out opportunities every fall. Matter of fact, we just sent out our testing out information, gathering that information for August of next year for our incoming 9th, 10th, and 11th graders right now. The triangle, pink triangle on the left there's CT, I'll get to a little bit. That's some of the new things and excitement that's coming to the high school that we haven't had yet. So we're not only going to be able to expand those opportunities and flexibility for our students based on some of those CT things and some of our the work that Carrie Park, our business teacher, has done for us this year. This kind of gives you a snapshot comparatively what the state of Michigan does. They pass legislation, there's a slide in here, kind of a chronological order of what they do. They pass the legislation, they adopt those standards, they identify the state assessments, the SAT, MME that we take every spring, and they basically provide guidance. We, as a district, as a high school, and you guys are a part of that when we bring curriculum to you, all of those things are under local district control. And I think the procedures that Mrs. Thomas has put into place in using our own staff to really dig into those things, and somebody had mentioned the curriculum camp earlier, that's what they do. They get into their content, they get into their standards or benchmarks, and they get into the curriculum apps, and they look for things to make that curriculum better. There's a brief history. The reason I threw that in there, notice on the far right, class of 2028. This is the first legislation that has been that has come through since 2016. This is going to affect our incoming ninth graders, that they are going to be required now as part of the Michigan Merit Curriculum to have a half a credit of personal finance. I think we are ahead of the game in that regard. Quite frankly, we've had and I'll get into it a little bit, we've had personal finance for our seniors as a fourth year math credit for a number of years. Becky Shells years ago had developed that, and we use it as a fourth year elective math credit for some of our students, and it's been very, very well received. We've had kids go through it. So I think we're ahead of the game. It's just a matter of now dialing in what those in the next year or two. And I got a slide in there about how we're going to do that with crosswalks and some of the other things that we have coming to the high school as of next year. That kind of gives you the old, what that Michigan Merit Curriculum was, and moving into what it is now. When we say curriculum, it's not necessarily what you are exposed to and what you look at when our staff brings it. It's just kind of like I said, the procedures and the supports of what we are supposed to be giving to our students throughout high school. It's our job and our staff's job is to really dial into those standards and benchmarks and dig into that stuff so we can provide the best that we can. It's hard to read, but that picture on the left-hand side, that does include now that half a credit of personal finance for incoming freshmen. This is what we kind of currently right now as of 2024. That's how we pretty much divvied up what those requirements are. The red on the other side are some of those things that we already do that are part of that. We already have an online experience. We have the SAT, MME, we've got EDP that they start in 8th grade all the way through their senior exit presentation as a senior. They're supposed to take those things and give their best effort, and we've got right now a total of 23. Now keep in mind, the Michigan Merit Curriculum is only 18. So there's 5 additional credit that we are requiring our students to have before they graduate. This is what it will look like. There is a typo there on the, it's supposed to be not 5 credits, it's 4.5 elective credits, simply because of that now have a credit of PFL. So that's basically what it's going to be. 18 credits for the Michigan Merit Curriculum. High school graduates from Linden are required to have 23 credits, and that's basically the breakdown that they're going to use to get there. This slide here is how I highlighted 2 sections in red. Project-based learning and career and tech ed. The one black bold is IB. We don't have IB, we've got AP courses, but the 2 in red are going to be new next year. I mean, we have some new curriculum, whether it be AP computer science, robotics. Like I said, Kerry Parkin has done an unbelievable amount of work in creating an accredited CT program now that we can grab some Perkins money and things of that nature. So again, we circle back to the flexibility part of that and the acceleration and all those things. I think it's only getting better with what we have done up to this point to provide those opportunities and that flexibility and that acceleration, for students at Linden High School. Speaking of PFL, that kind of gives you a little bit of timeline of what that comes in. As far as our incoming 9th graders. And moving forward, and I've got another slide, this is kind of a snapshot of how that can be built in. Whether it's going to be a standalone personal finance class, whether it can be embedded into an econ class, whether it can be embedded as far as a CTE offering, which we'll have next year. So again, there's that flexibility that we have more so with that. That's why I say we're ahead of the game in this regard. So our next steps, I think, are really to look at, and I think that picture in the bottom really encapsulates what we have going moving forward. And that is flexible, that is individualized, that is personable, that is accelerated. We've got to do, in the next year or so, we've got to really look at what some of those crosswalks are and look at some of the relationships between CTE and that personal finance. And some of those other things. I think, again, we're ahead of the game with that, with our incoming 9th graders. We've talked about preliminary with that existing PFL class, and now we're expanding that business. Maybe we go off and offer a business PFL and build in those standards and benchmarks. that are part of that requirement. So there's a lot of options right now to continue to create that flexibility in the next year or two for our incoming ninth graders. It's really dial that in, so we're hitting them in their 11th grade year, 12th grade year. So we don't have a lot of time, but we've got a little bit of time to dial that stuff in. And again, choices and options. I think on the right-hand side, those are things that we're excited about with the business offerings, possibly the PFL, CT opportunities. We have in our master schedule next year a trades math class. We're working on that pre-apprenticeship program and getting that up and running and going. In a science and society class, it'll be more project-based learning opportunities for students. And the last thing I'll leave you with is that's sometimes how I feel trying to navigate all of these things. There is no straight path. It's not like way back when I was in school. Nowadays, you got so many other things, and it's just a matter of we got good people in Mrs. Thomas, our department heads, that really stay on top of that stuff and navigate that stuff and put our students in a very good position. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Darren. Yeah, this is really interesting. A couple months ago, Ms. Hanson and myself sat through a webinar on this very topic, and it was really interesting and enlightening, actually, because I knew a little bit about it, but I didn't realize how much flexibility was with it for school districts, and so this is a really nice sort of closing the loop for us, at least, because we had some questions still after that regarding some of these topics. And I know we shared that presentation with other board members too. So if anybody didn't get a chance to watch it, because I know we're all swamped, this might be a good chance to go back and rewind on that just to kind of connect some of these pieces. So thank you very much for bringing this to us. It seems like we are doing really well, and I'm glad to see that personal finance piece, how that plan was planned seamlessly and like I assumed it would be. But I think that's all good. Any questions for Mr. Dreasky? Mr. Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Luck. Thank you, Mr. Dreasky, for the presentation. The MMC only requires 18 credits for graduation.
Mm-hmm.
So a school district could develop we just need 18 credits and you can graduate.
You'll see, the best comparison I can give you is Swartz Street. They've got a standalone alternative academy, and that's pretty much, it's a separate entity altogether. So it's a Swartz Street alternative diploma as opposed to a Swartz Street. They certainly can do that, yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. So we have basically 24 credits in a standard student would have available to them in 4 years?
Yes.
And we require that they complete 23 of them? Okay. Doing actions. I like the idea of the ability to test out and allow you to take another elective. Is that what that option?
For example, we see a lot of times with Algebra 1 or physical science, where I'll focus on the ninth graders. So they can accelerate that and come in as a freshman and take geometry, and then go to Algebra 2, and then we go to pre-calc or AP-calc or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really, again, the presentation we had earlier in the year with all the new electives that were being brought forward by the staff and yourself was very impressive. I think there's a lot of good target classes that will really be beneficial to our student body. I think our elective opportunities are very strong at Linden. So it shouldn't be hard for those kids to find 5 credits in a typical student career that they can enjoy and benefit from. So yeah, it's the flexibility that this allows you by not having to necessarily take the class to get a credit is, I can see how that, like I said, with the elective options, because 5 seems like a lot, but it's really not. It's like 1 a year, basically. So, but yeah, I think you're on the right track, we're on the right track, so keep up the good work. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Maker?
Yeah, thanks, Darren. I appreciate the presentation. And I think this is important because we have a tendency in society when the government, whether it be the federal or state government, puts out a framework, that people make the assumption that it's in and of itself, it's the direction that we have to take. And we have a lot of flexibility. And I think that's important to note, that the community and the board and the administration in the district has the right to develop the curriculum and provide the education that best reflects that community. And I think that's important, because if you're in a more rural area, if you gave certain class packages and curriculums, it wouldn't really be supportive of what that community may need. You know, and so we're able to develop things and with our professional staff and administration come up with opportunities for our kids that does challenge them and does still reflect and support kind of the personality of the community that they're in. So I think this is really great. I think there's a lot of transparency in this. And I think it's important that you bring this forward and show us, especially for our high school students, where things are going, because that's really where the focus is. That's kind of the finishing school, so to speak. You're developing the final product that goes out the door and into society. So I really appreciate it, and I think you guys do great work, and I thank you.
Yeah, one other this is just an idea that came to my head. I'm always full of ideas. You may already do this, so you can just ignore me. But it would be maybe a thought to have just a opportunity or the same presentation even for parents to come up to the school and see. I've heard from parents, even at the middle school level, like, oh, I didn't know this was an option, or I didn't know that was an option. You know, we get caught up, the kids go through advising with counselors and they get signed up for classes and it's all pretty standard. But some of these options that we have, I think a lot of our community and parents would be very interested to understand more about some of the options that their students have, because the students aren't going to come home and tell us. And so, you know, it maybe just something to think about, you know, I don't know when it wouldn't be inconvenient for the staff to look at schedules and things, I guess, but.
We get a brand new auditorium.
Yeah, there you go. You know, it'll fill right up with people.
Showcase that.
I'm sure you'd have about 6 people show up, but for those 6 people, it would be interesting and they could tell their friends. But I really think that there's so much cool stuff going on, and I think people just are unaware of all of the opportunities that their students have at our high school. So, all right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we are to the portion of our meeting for public comments. Mr. Aquilino, we have a public comment this evening.
Ms. Tara Phillips.
And just as a reminder, this is your opportunity to address the board. All your comments should be limited generally to 3 minutes. Mrs. Phillips did ask in advance to have 5 minutes, which I accepted. So she will have 5 minutes this evening to address the board. Your comments should be directed towards me as board president, and if warranted, Russ or myself will respond before the next scheduled board meeting. Okay.
I'm here to speak on topic 2414, reproductive health and family planning. At first, my concerns were with how the policy would be written, but I did some research on law sites, and in fact, the wording "shall not prefer" does mean the same as prohibited. See, in my mind, "shall not prefer" felt more like a suggestion, but I was wrong. Lake Fenton schools, with the recommendation of their lawyers, adopted the terminology "prohibited." The second concern I had was with the discussion about the child who may have extenuating circumstances, fear and anxiety, may face repercussions at home, and who may not have a safe parent or safe environment. How will this message be addressed to the professional staff members that they can have this discussion, since policy may be written as "shall not prefer"? How will this determination of this particular child be made so that the professional staff can have this discussion? I guess maybe first of all, I would like some clarification if the board is stating that professionals can or cannot give this particular child their professional opinion and advice prior to speaking with their legal guardian. Would these professionals be required to not have their own biased opinion on that topic? My concerns are, what if the professional does not believe in abortion? What if the professional believes that abortion is okay within 12 weeks, 22 weeks, or even 40 weeks? Parents, legal guardians have a completely different set of beliefs they are raising their children by. My husband and I have spent thousands of dollars for 18 years getting professional help for our child. Most of these professionals have different ways to approach things, and their personal opinions are often expressed. We've had a professional at the Rogers Center in Skokie, Illinois, tell her child she is a burden to myself and my family. I will tell you, The impact of that professional's words have had such a negative impact on her mental state. That particular professional treatment was sticking my kid in a 6x10 room by herself, watching Netflix and texting me the majority of her day, expressing how terrified she was, and she needed help, but no one was working with her. This professional was fired. My point is, we don't always agree with professionals. I don't know about you, but I think most kids would be terrified to discuss that they are pregnant or got a girl pregnant. Kids today are having sex in middle school. They are children having sex. I would say that some kids at this age may feel like they hate their parents and that they are cruel, and that's the message they may give to many. Parents typically make rules to try and guide their kids, and every parent has a different set of rules. Trust me when I say I don't agree with a lot of other parents' rules. In fact, I look back at mine and I think now, on some of them, I should have absolutely handled some topics completely differently than what I did. I guess the biggest question I have is if the staff professionals felt like this particular child may be in fear and have anxiety or not have a good environment, my question would be, why hasn't the professional been looking into this poor child's home life and possibly got CPS involved way before a child comes to discuss the topic of abortion? Thank you for your time.
All right, any other public comments this evening? Okay. All right. We will move along to the consent agenda, which includes minutes of our meeting from May 15th. Policy 2414, reproductive health and family planning, and MHSAA membership resolution for 24-25. It is the administrative recommendation to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we do have a few action items this evening. First up is the MHSAA Cooperative Tennis Agreement with Lake Fenton. Again, with all of these action items that we have, we've been given information in advance to review, and hopefully everybody had a chance to look things over. In this case, we would be entering into an agreement with Lake Fenton, so we have for the boys tennis, which is a fall sport, Lake Fenton will be the primary hosting school, and it is the administrative recommendation to approve the cooperative agreement as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions, Mr. Murphy?
Just a comment, I'm very glad that we take advantage of these cooperative agreements when they pop up from time to time. The school districts, ours in particular, is not growing right now, so our opportunity to provide in-house, we'd have to build tennis courts, we'd have to get enough support from the student body to support a team. This way, there's courts that are available locally nearby in Lake Fenton, and they have probably the same situation with us as far as not having necessarily enough to get a team going by themselves. And we found out with the lacrosse, how that's worked out fairly well as far as planting a seed. Then the interest grows, and eventually you can separate sometimes and get your own teams in each school again. So this is just a stepping stone to allow for that down the road, if it grows that, or it could be just fine as it is too. We've got the hockey cooperative that's worked out pretty well. So yeah, I'm very glad that we're doing this, and hopefully we do this. And thanks for Lake Fenton for providing the opportunity. Thank you.
All right, yeah, thanks, Mr. Murphy. I'll just tell a little side story here, just because I'm the board president, and I guess I can do that if I want to. But on your comment of the lacrosse and how that worked out, it just kind of brought to mind there was a lacrosse alumni game the other night for boys lacrosse. And so what started out as a co-op with Fenton a few years ago that's grown into our own program now has grown so much that there was, I don't even know, probably 35 or so alumni on the sidelines, bigger than our varsity team. They came up on Sunday night to play against the current varsity team, and it was a really cool event. In this case, it brought students that graduated from both Linden and Fenton because they were part of the co-op program initially, which was also a pretty cool thing. So I think you're absolutely right, taking advantage of these opportunities within our local school districts for our students. Who knows what can come of it eventually, and it can bring a lot of greater community to our campus as well. So, all right, any other comments on this one? All right, it's been moved and supported. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, up next is our non-aligned contract for 2024. This is with regard to a non-aligned contract for Katie Schertz and Diane Sokolowski, who are both administrative assistants and managers of the multipurpose building at the for community education. Hopefully everyone had an opportunity to review these contracts. It is the administrative recommendation to approve the non-aligned contracts for 2024 as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any comments or questions on this one? Mr. Murphy?
Thank you. Yeah, it's got some interesting aspects to it for these two individuals. The manager of the building has an opportunity to bump her pay by 2% if she's successful in bringing 4 events. I guess I would going to qualify that as the level of the value of those events. I assume they would be fairly substantial in order to trigger that 0.5 per event.
We asked her to generate revenue. So
Right.
basically after
But I mean, if
expenses out.
I generated $5 of revenue, that wouldn't be an event.
I'm sorry.
If I generated $5 of revenue, that wouldn't exactly qualify.
To be honest, we didn't get to that level. We said generate revenue. So we,
Well,
as we did, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I would hope that the amount of the revenue generated would at least equal the bump in pay, 0.5%. That, I don't know, it's probably too late to add that in. I guess it's not a lot, and you're talking about, you know, very small amount of money.
And Steve, you understand, that's just a stipend. That's not it's not a yearly compounded.
Okay, so that won't be added to? Okay.
No,
This is, okay.
it's a
Like a
stipend.
bonus.
Very good, okay. Well, I like that idea of creating bonuses from time to time, but that also opens the door to another situation, so I guess we'll just let that go. So yeah, basically the other one's fine. You know, it's a 10% bump in pay right off the bat for the second individual from where they're at now, and then kind of moderates a little bit in the future, but and I know these positions were established from nothing, basically. So.
And again, on that second one, we did follow the non-aligned administrative the administrative assistants bargaining group, you know, with their step systems.
Right. So that's how that number was generated?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. Just to get her on par?
Yes, sir.
Basically. Okay. Very good. Okay. No, I'm good with everything there. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that as well, just for anybody who might be listening, because that sounds pretty aggressive with regard to 10%. It's in like context. This individual has worked for the district already for I think close to a year, has proven herself, and could probably go to Taco Bell and start out making more money. So it is a large percentage increase dollar-wise. It's not that much. So, all right. Any other comments or questions, Mr.
Yeah, if I just may comment on the first part about the compensation, the 0.5%. So it ends up, I kind of thought through that one too. It ends up being, I think it's $180 if, you know, and so I thought, I kind of was along the lines at first with Mr. Murphy thinking like, you need to put some language in there about, but then I thought about just personal experience. I've got a few members of my family that go regularly play pickleball, and they're borrowing $5 from me every time, and that's kind of become a thing. So I like the idea that it kind of incentivizes some creativity, maybe kind of try some new things and bring some different revenue streams. So I actually like the idea, and I got comfortable with it as I thought through that. So, yeah, thanks.
Very good. Any other comments or questions? Okay, it's been moved and supported to approve the non-aligned contracts as presented. All of those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, up next is the summer cheerleading camp for 2024. Again, we got the detailed request to review in advance, but this is a cheerleading camp that takes place at Kalahari in Sandusky, Ohio, July 26th through 28th. So this is an opportunity for our cheer team to attend this camp if they are able to. There's no requirement. It is the administrative recommendation to approve the summer cheerleading camp as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
Been moved and supported. Are there any questions or comments regarding this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, last but certainly not least tonight on our action items is our Central Elementary Principal. We've had opportunity to review some information that Mr. Sosowski sent out in advance. After going through the interviewing process, the administrative is bringing to us Katie Morford as principal of Central Elementary, and it is the administrative recommendation to approve Mrs. Morford as Central Elementary's principal as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any comments or questions on this? Mr. Murphy?
Not being on the committee, it was impressive to hear the impression that Mrs. Morford made on the committee. I think the description was wow or something like that. So that's big shoes to start out to fill. It's a melting pot for our district where the 2/3 K-3 buildings move together with their student body and coming in fourth grade. So there's some tricks to play there, and then, it sounds like with her experience, at least having a few years of experience as a principal in another district, that's encouraging. I like that idea, and so good luck. Thank you.
Any other comments, Mr. Montague?
I'll just add real briefly that I've been going to a lot of open houses, and there's a lot of excitement and conversation and good feedback about Ms. Morford, and so I'm really excited to have you on board, and so thank you for accepting the position.
Anything else? That's also a cue on how word travels quick in Linden. Yes. We have a lot of pressure now, but no, I agree with what Mr. Murphy said. It went from like, hey, we're going to start doing interviews, so we found the perfect person. So we're very excited to have you joining Linden's administrative team. So with that, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries, and welcome to Linden. And I think Mr. Sosowski wants to formally introduce.
Yeah, so with that, I'd like to officially introduce Ms. Katie Morford, who is with us tonight as the principal of Central Elementary. We have had the opportunity, we went through the process, a couple things to point out to the board. Katie already knows this, we've had a lot of discussions. As we went through the process, we actually surveyed Central staff this time around. And all 12, 13 questions that we asked Katie were generated from the staff. As well as characteristics that we had asked for, what they were looking for. We had 2 or 3 staff members. We actually brought Katie in to meet with all of the staff. And so, again, a great reception for Katie and some of the comments that she's already made to the staff. I know she's talked to Cheryl numerous times. I know she's talked to Nate numerous times. I know she's already set up for a meeting next week with Greg to go over some of the bond work that's going to be happening at Central to get her up to speed. So she's definitely hit the ground running. I think on top of that, just so I don't steal Katie's thunder here, she lives in Linden, has lived for the last 5 or 6 years, 4.
We started building our dream home during COVID.
Yeah.
So we've officially lived in it for just over 2 years.
Yep, so I think Katie's made the comment a couple times, I'm looking for my dream job. I'm knocking on wood that this is it for her. And then having that connection to our community already, I think is an added plus to what we're going to get from Ms. Morford. So with that, Katie, welcome to Linden.
I'm really excited. I think I'm really excited to my house from my house. I'm rather spoiled. I'll be late if I get stuck at the light at Taco Bell. But I do have, I am a mom of 1 who is graduating. I am one person that has a proud graduate sign of a Grand Lake graduate. I'm sorry. But her party is this weekend, and she was a part of the early college program, so we did keep her in Grand Lake. But I've heard such positive things about Linden. I'm super excited. So not that I don't want my summer to bypass yet, but I'm really excited to get started. So
welcome again. All right, we do have a few discussion items this evening as well. As now I'm looking at the discussion items, we have them out of number, but that's okay. First up is the strategic plan update, and I know Russ sent out some information that we have looked through, and I think he's prepared to do a little presentation here tonight for us, so we can take a look at this and then have conversation if we need to.
Yes, so I just wanted to, and we'll be back to the board at our next meeting as well, to kind of look at some of the revisions and recommend our next revision of our strategic plan for 24-25. As we talked about with our current strategic plan, I think the flexibility has been key to making sure that our district continues moving forward. You've mentioned a lot of what I'm going to mention already. When Darren talked about some of the curriculum, I think Mr. Murphy talked about some of the things that Cheryl's been doing with our CIA department, and some of the things that Nate's been doing with our HR, and what Kylie's been doing with our financials. So again, I think how we've constructed our strategic plan, how we go about gathering information and putting together, we're starting to see the fruits of our labor. So with that, as far as 23-24, to start a recap of the next two meetings. Again, last June the board approved our strategic plan. We did a lot of work last year. So again, some of the improvements may be slight as we really start working toward what we want to do this year and potentially into next year. The survey, when we sent that out, I think we had it open for about 3 weeks. And we had a total of 255 responses. And again, email blast, Soup's Corner, a strategic plan leadership group sent it out to 10 individuals that they're all in our district, that aren't part of the staff or a student or a parent. Building admin did the same. We did push it out on social media. And we had that at a few of our school events, including the spaghetti dinner with the Masada Quad that we did right there. Actually, that was before we opened it up publicly, just because it was like 2 days later. We wanted to get community input. Why did we only get 255? I don't know. We went through this last year. I can give you all kinds of reasons where people don't want to do it. People like what we're doing, like the direction. People don't like the direction. People don't have the time. I don't know what that answer is. The good news is we had 255 people give us feedback. So we looked at that information and we said last year at this time, through the survey, through the input from our strategic plan leadership group, what are our challenges? What are our focus areas? And we identified these through our strategic plan were our focus areas for 23-24 for this school year. Safety and security, student opportunities, primarily the curriculum piece, the social and emotional learning support, communication, and then obviously continued work with the bond program. So how did they do? And again, a lot of this information is through the survey, as well as input from strategic plan leadership group. Other input comes from weekly board reports that you guys get. And that's what those numbers, I know you know that, we talked about it. But every week, our administrative staff puts together a board report of what's happened in their building. And they have to relate it to the strategic plan. It's got to move forward with the direction of our district. So as you look at the graphs, they're basically the last, really the only 3 surveys we've given out. Yellow, or gold if you will, is 23-24. So as you can see in this particular example, the ones you'll see in the next couple slides, we have a lot more gold this year than we had last year of red, and the year before of blue. And these are based on the percentages answered. Okay? So what are we doing under safety and security being a focus area? We put in place a 2-way radio system district-wide. We added doors with deadbolt systems. We added door access systems. This is above and beyond what the bond had allotted for. We added more. We talked about the hall monitors at Linden Middle School, Linden High School. We talked about security camera systems. And again, we added more than what the bond was able to provide for us because we found the need for more. The lockout inquiry, I think the board has received some information. We're working with a company right now that could potentially outfit every building with a lighting system, a PA system, pole stations in every classroom, hallways. So if there is an emergency, it's just one pole. And then we have a common communication piece, whether it be lighting inside and out, as well as communication. So again, more to come from the board. to the board once we get through that system. Secure fund on trees that we already have in place through the bond, and then our security, SRO security audit. Every year we work with our Officer Jeremy Williams with the police department. He does safety security audit of that campus. And then we work with Ms. McElravich, Mr. Strickard, Mr. Baddez, Mr. Lamont, myself, and we kind of go through. Sometimes they're little things. Getting our recess aides kind of high-vis outfits, so people know, that they're in charge, they're the supervisor. So again, we're doing things like that as a focus. We look at student opportunities. I'm not going to get into much detail. We talked about it already tonight. Mr. Dreasky talked quite a bit about it. But again, when you look at the responses we received, we're getting a lot more gold in that strongly agree area. So again, people are aware that we're offering more opportunities. And then obviously the opportunities that we're offering. We looked at social and emotional learning support. And I think we really hit the ground running this year with social and emotional learning from our office that Mr. Dreasky uses with our LHS students. In fact, I just had a conversation with Mr. Enders earlier in the week about what it would look like at the middle school. And again, that's a mental health screener. It's just a screen. Adding counselors, a balanced life counseling partnership, Genesee Health Systems, and again, not only with that, with Genesee Health Systems, but some of the MOUs we have in place for their supports. Somebody talked about grants. Did Tara talk? Who talked about the grants? Brooke, was that you? Well, somebody did. I wrote it down.
Jason. Jared did.
Oh, Jared did. Yes, from yeah. Sorry about that. From the county. Yeah, we had Argentine, Hyatt, and Linden all received grants. And the middle school as well. All received grants through the Genesee Health System and that millage money that you talked about to help promote social and emotional well-being. Threat assessment protocols, the addition of school nurses, and again, when you look at the graphs, you look at the information that we receive back through those surveys, we're seeing more gold. So again, awareness is out there. We talked about communication. I think this will be ongoing as long as we're all here. You can never communicate enough. Sometimes you can communicate too much. People lose focus on what you're trying to communicate. But when we look at what we're doing communication-wise and how we're getting that communication out, just really quick, I know, board, you saw some of this last year, so it may look familiar. Again, one of our focuses was on some of the social media platforms that we incorporated over the last 2 years with our ThrillShare, our website, the Facebook, the Instagrams. But again, this is year to year. So January of 23 to January of 24, we had a 90% increase in our Facebook engagement. That have seen over 236,000 people or clicks on our information. We had a 100% increase on Instagram, and that was new for us last year. We looked at content interactions. The number of likes, comments, shares, 80% increase from January of 23 to January of 24. Again, engagement on Instagram as far as interactions that we're putting out as a district. We're taking credit for that. 100% increase. 21,000, almost 22,000 link clicks. So when we put information out that they're links, they either send them to our website or send them to another piece of information that's Linden Community Schools related. 163% increase. So again, information is getting out. Social media is powerful. It's positive, it's negative. I understand all that. But I think right now, from Linden Community Schools' point, it has been an avenue for us to get information out. And again, this is January to January. And there's some more in here, and again, we can talk about this later. But one thing I will say is, one area we actually had a focus. I think if you remember when I showed this slide last year, when we looked at our male audience, we were really low on that 25 to 34. Okay? And so when we looked at it from the year, we were like at zeros. Now look at us. Okay? For at least male. So we had a targeted approach. Why the 25 to 34 males? Those are the fathers of our students, our younger students. Okay, so we found ways to get those students, those parents engaged. We had a plan. And then as they're engaged now when we start sending more information out that may be elementary related, they're getting it. So again, using the data to really target an audience that maybe we hadn't engaged before. So again, kudos to Ellen Kissel, who handles most of this for us. But again, our communication, and again, email blasts. That's how most people are getting our communication. Simple emails. And then again, the bond work that we're doing here at Linden Community Schools. Monday, Darin got everything Sunday night after graduation cleared up. And literally Monday they started this demolition. So if you walked into the main office, you wouldn't even know it existed. You walked into the cafeteria, you wouldn't know it existed. You walked into the old science rooms in the high school, you wouldn't even recognize it. So in a matter of 3 or 4 days, they pretty much wiped everything out. And then as we've done in other buildings, that'll be the next focus to make sure we're up and running for the fall, including the demolition that's taken place on the Hyatt Elementary too, if you haven't been down there yet, with the old gymnastics in the locker room. So again, the goal is good, and when you look at some of the results based on the survey questions, we're getting a lot more gold in the strongly agree areas. We're getting, agree. We're getting a lot less in the disagree and strongly disagree. So you can look at that in many different ways. I think one way to look at it, when you look at communication, we are getting communication up. It'll never be perfect, and we understand that. So moving forward, so as a strategic plan leadership group, as we looked at the survey questions, we looked at the answers, we looked at some of the information from the weekly reports, where we're doing really well, where we need to continue our focus areas. These we determined will be our challenge areas for 24-25. So there will be some revisions to the strategic plan, and I think that's some of that flexibility and the objectives to really, again, continue focusing on social and emotional learning support. Instructional strategies. Yes, we're going to focus on artificial intelligence. We need to be prepared, not only our staff but our students. Communication, student opportunities, curriculum instruction and assessment, and that's some of the work Cheryl's already started, obviously, and then the bond program as we continue through that process. So again, board, I wanted to at least get back to you some of the results of the strategic plan survey, how we were able to take some of those challenges and really capitalize to make things better here at Linden for our students, our staff, and our community. And with that, I'll open it up for any discussion.
All right, thanks, Russ. Any questions or comments on this? I was going to say, we got to have something for him. All right, thanks, Mr.
I'll
Hayden.
take my turn. From my perspective, where we've grown in this specific arena, as far as being able to track critical data and things like that, you and your office have done a really nice job. I think one of the things that I've suggested in the past is that our victories, we need to celebrate them. We need to push them. We need to let people know what we're doing, how we're ranking, and I found in the past that we weren't quite at the forefront of doing that. So from that aspect, nice job.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Murphy?
Again, the only thing that, really concerns me right now in the district is the school choice aspect and slightly unrelated homeschooling. I'd really like to see us do everything we can to encourage all students to come to Linden that live in the district and not leave to go to another district or even homeschooling. I think the opportunities that we're providing right now in Linden, we should be proud of. I think we have many reasons to be proud of. And I just think that sometimes we need to better educate these groups, the homeschool parents and the parents of school choice students. So it's a matter of identifying to a certain extent. Probably the biggest challenge right now is identifying who those kids are. We don't always know who they are because of the system that's set up right now from a state perspective. So that'd be the one thing I would like to see us concentrate on as a community, as a Linden community school community. So, thank you.
And I guess I'll just kind of say on that note, I feel like what, you know, Russ has presented here, kind of to Mr. Haney's point as well, we really are celebrating our wins, and that's the kind of stuff that's going to get out to people in the community that might be making choices for other, you know, to send their kids elsewhere or homeschool. And people have a whole variety of reasons why for their families they choose what they choose, and that's certainly their own personal prerogative. But I think, you know, as we're seeing these increases in our social media and getting the story out there, people are obviously understanding better. I mean, even if you look at the questions about understanding the vision and the goals of the district and secure, I mean, everything is up, which is good, because then that travels word of mouth to families that, you know, everybody's got a neighbor or a friend that, you know, they can share the story with. So I think that's all pointed in the right direction as well there. Any other comments or questions on this? All right, well, thanks for bringing this to us, Ross, and good work on that as well. All right, we will move along here to reviewing the parent-student handbook adoptions for 2024-2025, and for tonight, these are kind of just discussion items, and they will go on consent at the next meeting with any, you know, without changes or with changes, whatever the discussion is. So we have both the district student handbook, parent-student handbook, and the athletic handbook. We sort of, hopefully everybody had a chance to go through those. Oh, thanks, Ross, he's got it right up here. And the nice way that it was presented, sort of just a quick, the cheat sheet version, which is nice. So I don't know if anyone has questions or comments on these as well, but now's a chance. Mr. Murphy?
Yeah. Thank you, Mrs. Black. Not really identified in here, but my continued concern about our exam policy at the high school. We received, oh, it is in there, okay.
Yeah, including the presentation that is sent
Yeah.
out, the information.
And that's what I was going to just reference. Mr. Stelsky provided us with a relatively detailed presentation about the last 3 years, I think, the history of the, was started to be as a pilot in 2020 was wiped out by COVID. And then we kind of moved in without, my opinion, considering it a pilot in 2021. We just started moving with it. And I just think it's not in the best interest of our district. And I use that concern because, you know, you don't necessarily want to be a follower, but we are truly a leader in this area as far as there's nobody else doing this across the board, 9 through 12. There's some examples out there. Mr. Selke gave us a kind of a detailed list in that presentation of most of the other various districts in the county, what they're doing. Seemed like most of them were some sort of a second semester senior exemption for, you know, taking exams just for that group of people. I have a problem with that because if you're taking difficult classes in your second semester, then you benefit. But if you're taking the easy one, then you don't benefit. So to me, it's, I just believe that we're better off rewarding our students for what they do, what they accomplish. And when you take the final exam, which could be 10 to 20% of the grade, I think, maybe more. I don't think it should be more than that. But you're basically applying whatever the student has accrued on the 80% that they've done through the school year in that class. And they're basically getting a free pass for that. I have a problem with the opportunity for a student to take the exam and have it not affect their grade negatively. I mean, if you're going to take it, that's great. I think you want to improve your grade, okay, great, that's good. But the problem is it's only those select group of people that are in this class that can do that. If you're not one of the participants in the option to exempt out of taking the exam, if you're a lower student, you're performing not as well in the class, you don't qualify for the exam exemption. You have to take the exam, and if you do poorly on it, it will negatively affect your grade. So it's like, here you are, the people that you're kind of concerned, should be concerned highly about, the lower performing students, and you're not, you know, giving the higher performing students just a free-for-all. Hey, go in, color by numbers, do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. You can't hurt your class. You can only help it. And I would hope, based on that, if our kids are as smart as they are, that they would all be taking that class if they don't have an A. Because why wouldn't you? I'm going to take that exam, go in there and give it the best shot. Maybe I'll study, maybe I won't. Doesn't matter, it's not gonna hurt my grade. I mean, it's not a good way to go through life when you think about making an effort to do something when, you know, it doesn't matter. It's a freebie. So, to me, this is a very important part of a district's education. And when I look at the list of the other districts around the county and what they're doing, it's basically, as I said, the senior exemption for the second semester just so that they could wrap up grades before the end of the school year, and everybody else who's still taking the same class, a junior or sophomore might be in the same class, they haven't had their finals yet, but the seniors get out early, so I think that's all where this kind of came from. The fact that the seniors were graduating, getting out of school early, so they wanted to kind of clean this up. So, again, I have seen no credible evidence that this, you know, by rewarding people for doing what they're expected to do, which is to attend school, that's not exactly an option. It's by law you're supposed to attend school. And you know what? We go through the process of notifying the parents. And if the parents don't want to resolve the problem with their kid missing school, that's on them. In my opinion, we do what we can do. We notify the parent that they're not attending school and let the parent be a parent. You know, not reward the kids for just doing what they're doing, because they're going to do it anyways. Most of those kids are going to do it anyways. The idea of taking less tests, to me, is not necessarily a good thing. It's certainly emotionally probably easier on the student. I never enjoyed taking all my finals back in the day. But you know what? It was an expectation. And you just studied, and you made the best effort you could, and you lived with the consequences. So this idea of why this whole thing came about was to improve attendance, to improve personnel tardiness, attendance to class, getting to class on time. These are all carrots, and it's a carrot and stick approach. And I just think it's the bad way to go. We jumped into it too fast, too hard, in my opinion. I didn't see any credible evidence around this country that this was a great thing to do. So we just jumped into it, and now the problem is jumping out of it. That's my concern is you almost got to like start staggering it out if you want to get out of this problem, which I consider it to be. It's like you start with this year's freshman class, and you're out next year. You just keep adding classes until you're back to normal, where most of the other districts are at. And again, I don't even like the fact that I just don't see any reason for any student exemptions, any exam exemptions for it. I think it's a bad idea, and I'll continue to vote against this handbook as long as it includes it. So, thank you.
Mr. Montague?
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Luck. I would like to offer a different perspective as a parent of 5 high school students. So I agree with some of Mr. Murphy's points as far as you can argue about the philosophy of getting work done, and oftentimes I try to align, what we're really trying to teach our students in terms of becoming humans and becoming productive members of society. And so there's certainly a perspective where we should be encouraging our children to always work hard and not kind of wait till the last minute. And then if there's a carrot there to kind of increase your effort or whatever, so I think that's debatable, and I can certainly see that perspective. But I will say, in my household, there are some of those days as far as the attendance piece where, my kids have figured out that if they use the term mental health day, that can sometimes be a freebie, or they get up in the morning and I don't feel great. Okay, are you really sick, or are you just too tired, or whatever it is? And it's not really such a last minute thing as I would have expected. This starts, I'd say, maybe a month before the end of the semester, and I saw all of my kids kick into gear and actually probably make the decision to go to school, and maybe they could have used one of those other ways to get out of school, quote unquote. Now, maybe I'm not a great parent for that, but also to really, make sure that they got their assignments turned in, and make sure that they studied for, those tests and everything. And without exception, they all had grades increase and were able to be exempt from some of the grades. So as we talk about some of the ways that we want to maybe try to attract people here, some of the things that make Linden different. I don't really know how this disseminates to other people outside of other districts, but I can tell you that, again, just within my household and even some of my kids' circle of friends, it certainly is something that they really value, and you can see that from the student feedback that Mr. Soselsky shared with us. So I've seen the advantages of it. I guess if I try to apply it in my work world, we all have due dates, and there are some things that are longer projects, and sometimes you might procrastinate, but then as long as you've got that due date at the end, and if you turn it on time, that's usually okay in my corporate world. So I can see that, again, I do encourage my kids to try to, it's going to be easier on you if you start that paper early, but if you do wait until, the last week or whatever, you're going to have to maybe, work hard the last few days. So I will continue to support this, and I think that there is a benefit to it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll kind of just piggyback on that a little bit, because I had a couple of the same points, Mr. Montague, and I agree that I can certainly understand some of Mr. Murphy's points as well on this. Also, having, only one child in high school right now, but I've had one and another one coming up. It's definitely a motivator. Having said that, also, I think I mentioned this last year, and I just want to mention it again for what it's worth. I can't speak on behalf of all kids or all classes or all teachers, but I can tell you my kid didn't have to take exams, took an exam every day on his last day of school until final exams started. And so they were giving tests anyway. So it's just the final test versus calling it a final exam. So they're still testing them. One grade went up and one grade went down based on those final tests that last week. So I think our teachers are doing a good job of still assessing students at the end, regardless of what they're calling it. And my guess in many of those cases, sort of to your point of the not damaging the ones that are at highest risk, my guess is many of those final exams are being written in a way to help those students, because that is the population that's taking those exams. I have no direct evidence of that, but that would be my suspicion. Also, I think I mentioned this in the past, and obviously I can't speak on behalf of all colleges and universities or all professors, but I work at one of the top STEM institutions in the nation, and many of our professors give students, and it's on their syllabus, that if they're reaching a certain point by the end, they can either be exempt from the final or they drop the lowest grade of one of their tests if they do better on the final. So that's something that hasn't been discussed, but maybe if we start doing finals again, we have to go back, and that creates kind of a hassle for teachers, but it gives students an opportunity to do better cumulatively than they've done on something smaller along the way. So at any rate, I agree with Mr. Montague at this point, where I will continue to support this as well. But any other comments on this? Mr. Haney?
I know, isn't there a good portion of colleges now that don't require SAT submissions?
That's correct.
And that's because we want to give a child credit for what they did in that 4-year resume. So in essence, to break that down on a school year basis, from that aspect, you're giving it, and I go back and forth with Mr. Murphy on this as well too. That's why I know for me personally, I'll consistently try to get that benchmark a little higher every year, as far as the percentage goes, as far as the exemption is concerned. So, it's certainly debatable. I do think we have had some good evidence as far as how it has helped us as far as referrals and attendance and those things. But the same token, I can agree with a certain portion of what Mr. Murphy says as well too. But that's all I got. Thank you.
All right. Anything else on this? Any comments or questions on the athletic handbook? There were a few updates there, mostly just procedural types of things. Mr. Soselsky hasn't, that's all right, you don't need to. He's got a similar thing, we all have it, unless somebody wants to see it.
They're short enough. Basically, we just removed Lance's name, replaced it with Mr. Gleason's. We did remove 7th and 8th grade boys lacrosse because we don't do that through the school now. That is done through our youth program. Then there was the performance enhancing drugs. We no longer list all those. We provide a link that goes back to the MHSAA, which ultimately goes back to the NCAA list of prohibited performance enhancing substances. And that was it for the athletic handbook.
All right, any questions or comments on any of those items? All right, seeing none, we will move along to the showcase and trophy reconfiguration plan. I know Mr. Sosowski shared with us a little bit of information here, which he's probably going to pull up, so we can have further conversation on this.
Again, as Darren makes his way, this is part of the bond process. As far as the first foyer and the cafeteria area, felt it was important that we explain to the board what the process we're going through with our, as you saw, those athletic trophies, some of our non-athletic awards, and really moving to a digital version, not only for long keeping, but also because of space. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Diss.
Thank you. Just to give you a kind of a snapshot, it's been months in the making, really. And as we've gotten into this, it's gotten pretty labor intensive. It's going to be a process. But just to kind of give you, we did start with, and I keep adding to it daily as far as what we've done, what we need to do, who do we need to talk to, where do we need to go as far as reorganizing to get to that digitization of all of our, not just our trophies, but we've got Hall of Fame, we've got All-State, we've got Hall of Fame memorabilia. There's a lot of things that are having to take place, and ironically, our new photographers, alternative photography, they started on Monday of this week. And I got some pictures in there just to kind of show you what that looks like. And it's going to take them until next Tuesday. And they've been here roughly every day from 9 to 3, taking photographs of all of the stuff that we have reorganized or we're going to reorganize in that digital display. So this is kind of what it looked like before. It doesn't look like it now, it's all destroyed. But the showcases themselves, we took those out, the plaques off of the one up in the upper left-hand corner is the Hall of Fame. All of the memorabilia, all of the Hall of Fame plaques, cafeteria, you can see some of the All-State pictures above the empty showcase there, and the one in the lower right-hand corner, then we had All-State pictures up there as well. We have taken those down. On top of the band, we included the band, and we had some of those academic showcases right outside of the auditorium. So those are included as well. This is what the art room, one of our newly renovated art rooms, looks like now.
Is that your new office too?
No, the one next door.
Okay.
My new office is the art room next door. So that doesn't include, that's just half. That's the athletic. The one on the right-hand side is the band that was added when Mr. Bennett cleaned out his band room that we're also having digitized as well. Those are on the left-hand side, those are all of the All-State photographs. On the right-hand side, those are all of the Hall of Fame memorabilia, all of the plaques that were in that little short Hall of Fame hallway. All of those things now are currently in that art room being photographed by alternative photography. The start in the lower left-hand corner, what they did when we approached them, I gave them some of those photographs you can see up in the upper left-hand corner were some of the backdrops that we used for some of our athletic signings or things of that nature, just to get a different look. What was the best backdrop to make it consistent, to make that particular plaque or trophy or whatever stand out. I was kind of hoping that it would look better with Linden in there, but when we looked at it, we chose the one in the lower right-hand corner, the grayish background for that consistency's sake and to allow that stuff to stand out a little bit more. This is basically what that main lobby, as you walk in, what is the main lobby now, the main entrance now, it will be the event entrance once we get all of the renovations done. In the middle of that is that touch wall, touch screen digital display. On either side of it, we're still going to have a showcase. We're still going to display, as part of that reorganization plan, we're still going to display, but we're going to have more of a rotational system instead of having everything there. For those kids that come in, it'll be basically a four-year rotation. So anything going back right now from 2021 through 23, 24, that's going to be displayed. Once we get this done, those league trophies, Metro League championships, those district trophies, those regional or state championship type things are gonna go into that main display right in the main lobby. So we still have a plan for those. The plan that we have, and I'll get to that at the end. Goodrich is going through the same process. So this is from Goodrich. This is not exactly what we're going to do, but it kind of gives you a visual. The one on the left there is basically, we'll have our own pictures and things of that nature that make it Linden. But you'll be able to touch that screen. You'll be able to get some of those other buttons at the bottom of it, whether we call it student life, athletics, or what we name those buttons yet. We're still in that process, working with Touchwall in identifying those things. But basically, you'll have the opportunity, if it is more athletics, the one on the right-hand side there, you'll have the opportunity to get into the athletic side of it. And if you wanted to go and see sports-specific, once all those trophies are digitized, you'll be able to click that baseball button, and you'll be able to go and see the 2004 state runner-up. Or you'll be able to go see, the 2016 state runner-up. We'll have those team photographs in there. We'll have all of those things in there based on sport. It'll be at the touch of a button. So what we plan on doing, again, I mentioned that rotational basis, having that from 2021 through 23, 24, out in that main lobby to display. Right now, we've already started to communicate. We've got to find, once they're all digitized, what are we going to do with them? I've met with Pete Moss, who is down at the Linden Historical Society. He came in. Part of it was to enlist his help, but also, quite frankly, Pete's been around a long time, and I basically wanted his blessing that what we were doing and how we were planning was in line with what he was thinking since he basically started the Hall of Fame, just so we could look at it, so we could see some of these things, look at the plan, we could have a conversation. Selfishly, I was kind of hoping that the Historical Society would keep some of this stuff as well. So that we'll see how that pans out, because we do have a lot of historical things. If that's not a possibility, we'll do the same thing with our Hall of Fame. We'll store it. We'll have a rotational, so it's not just all out there. We'll rotate it, so those things aren't lost. So that still will be a part of it. Once we get to that point of everything being digitized, and I talked to Scott from Alternative this morning, he thought by Tuesday that they would have everything digitized. And then at that point, I've already communicated with some of our local coaches, a Clint Lawhorn that I'm still in touch with here and there, or Chris Landrum, whose father was a longtime golf coach, to allow them the opportunity to come in, and if they want some of those more historical things based on the sports in which they coach, if they want to take them, and they may want to redistribute them, they may be in contact with some of those former players. We'll reach out to, I'll get with Ellen. Russ mentioned Ellen and her savviness, if that is even a word, with social media, to get the word out about anybody in the community that still may be here, that may want to come in and go through and take a look. And see, I was a part of that team in that tournament, and I'd like to have that, to make sure that we're touching those people in the community that are still here, that still may want those things. At the end of that, we still got to find a way, if we, even with Pete's going to be a big help to me, especially with the Hall of Fame, with his historical knowledge, with his contacts. Once those plaques are digitized, getting them back to the rightful owner or the family member, so they have it, because we'll have them at the touch of a button. So at that point, hopefully those things. The goal is to get that classroom ready to be used as a classroom again in the fall. So hopefully we can do that with what we're doing here.
Awesome. That's a big project.
It's getting bigger by the day.
Yeah, and it's one of those projects that regardless of how kind of cool and modern and what a good idea this is, it's going to have a lot of gaps in it probably for a while. So I'm sure you're looking forward to that. The phone calls that something was missed or.
It'll be a process, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I have no doubt. They even talk with people out of Goodrich. If you go on their website right now, there are some things that are just not live because they're not ready. They haven't
they haven't got all the information in there yet.
Yeah, a couple questions I have, and I'm sorry if I missed this. So this will be obviously the digital signage in the high school. Is this something that would be interactive online as well, like through the athletic website, or is it going to be more of a one-off? Like I can put a request in for like a digital copy of the Flint Metro League?
That's a
Or-
great question. Mrs.
Okay.
Block. I would probably have to defer that to Mr. Horsley. He's been heavily involved in that tech side of it as well.
Yeah.
I don't have that answer.
I wasn't sure. I guess from a couple perspectives. One, it would be cool because it would be available. But then also, is it, I mean, I guess it wouldn't be any kind of like confidentiality stuff, right? Because it's public in the high school anyway, so it doesn't matter. But, and then another question I had, kind of on that same note, and maybe you guys have already thought of this, but it might not be a bad idea to have like a, could just do like a Google form or something if somebody wanted to recommend that something get added. Rather than taking a million requests, like, hey, if you have a request for something to be added to the digital, whatever, athletic, academics, band, whatever, they can put the request in. That way it can be cross-referenced to see, is it already there? Is it something we should add? You know, some kind of an approval process for having
That's
something
part
added.
of what we had, some of the criteria moving forward, what is
Yeah,
going to be included.
what's gonna go in,
what's not.
yeah.
Yep.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, Mr. Murphy?
Thank you, Ms. Luck. This is a traumatic thing that we're doing here as far as taking a lot of history and kind of putting it to the side. I believe one thing that we should maintain in the school district, in that building, is all state championships, period. I don't want runner-ups, all that's great stuff, but I think we need to maintain state champions or state championships by teams or individuals. That's the one thing that should stay in that building forever and ever, in my opinion. In real terms, a trophy, a plaque, or a picture of somebody like that. I think if we look at that group of people, that's not that extensive of a number of people, unfortunately. I'd like to think it's a big number, but I guess I'd like to see the number on that. The idea of these county championships, regional championships, pictures of the guys from a team on a plaque, whatever, with the trophy attached. Those things, to me, first and foremost, I'd like to reach, like you said, reach out to the coaches. I'd like to see them have an opportunity to have those. But then beyond that, if they're no longer in the mix, then I guess you could come up with a way to reach out to team members and see if they would be interested in it. I certainly would be for possibly one of them or so. But the bottom line here is, I think it's pretty radical what we're doing. I think it's practical to a certain extent what we're doing. But again, the idea of the state championship to me, athletically, is the highest honor you can have. And I don't want to see that gone away. I kind of on an unrelated issue, but I think it's related, is the picture assembly of all the graduating classes that was hanging on the wall by your office. What's happening to that?
We still have that.
I mean, to me, that's pivotal. I get so much enjoyment by going in there and flipping through the years. Oh, so-and-so graduated in '87, boom. And I was shocked. I guess I hadn't paid much attention. A couple years ago, I found out that we're not doing that anymore. We're not adding them to that wall. And I guess that, to me, that's a great injustice to the district. I don't know why. I think it was 87, 8, 9, something like that was the last year that those portraits were put together on that sheet wall. To me, it's a very small amount. It's, how it flips sideways. It's very effective use of space, in my opinion. For what it does, people can come and show, hey, this is my graduating picture, you got your granddaughter, whatever. It's just a little bit of credibility that is the other thing that I think is very important to the district, that you keep that connection going. I would like to see us reinstate that connection and start putting together that. I understand now that everybody gets senior pictures done by whatever's, their own little photographers. We don't do the senior picture thing where they come in and actually take the pictures. And
Just in the beginning of the year.
yeah. So the bottom line there is, I think that's something that we're kind of missing out on a little bit. I'd like to see what
the possibility of reinstating that concept. Maybe going back and trying to put together some of those classes that are missing, which is a lot now, because like I said, it's been 20 years since we've been adding plates. Each one of those plates had 4 classes on it. One plate, 2 on each side, top and bottom, top and bottom. So I mean, it doesn't take up a lot of space to add that to the district. And, to me, it's just continuity to the district. It gives people a buy-in to the district. But anyways, I really hope that we kind of rethink a little bit what we're doing here and recognize at least those state championships as a way that we keep those forever and ever on site. Thank you.
All right, any other comments or questions on this topic? No? All right, seeing none, thank you, Darren. And please pass along our gratitude to the people that are taking all these trips. It's got to be a huge project, so. All right, at this time, we are going to move into closed session per Section 8A, periodic personnel evaluations, and Section 8C, collective bargaining strategy of the Open Meetings Act. I do need a motion and support.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor? Aye. All right, so we move into closed session at 7:34 p.m. Everybody had the opportunity to review the contract, both full version and updates to the contract that was submitted. And I guess before we have any discussion, we need a motion and support to approve the superintendent contract as presented.
So support.
It's been moved and supported to approve the contract as presented. Are there any questions or discussion on this evening? Mr. Maker.
I just wanted to comment that I was part of the subcommittee that met with Russ initially. Russ came to us with a draft of the contract as he was proposing to us. We had, I think, pretty good discussion over the course of a good hour anyways. And we had identified a couple areas that, you know, not structurally so much as kind of language and how the term of the contract would play out. And Russ came back to us with changes or adjustments to that language, which are reflected in what we, have before us to vote tonight. So we felt like he did things that were favorable to the board and the district, but also were fair to him as the board's employee, to place him in the best position to be competitive and also reflect his performance and, as we mentioned earlier, his position of seniority as a superintendent here in Genesee County. So.
Agreed, very good. Any other comments? Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. There are a couple things in it. There's some improvements from Mr. Stelsky here in a couple areas. The term of the contract goes from 3 to 4, or rolling.
No, it's not a 4-year rolling. It's 4 years with a potential of a 2-year extension.
Okay, so that's a change over our current 3-year in what respect?
Yes, it was. My current one is a 3-year rolling.
Mm-hmm.
And then I am asking for a 4-year contract, and then with a potential of a 2-year extension beyond that.
Well, it doesn't say with a potential.
The board has the obligation to notify me if they're going to non-renew me by the end of the 4th year. So if we negotiate like we're doing now, then yeah, everything goes well. If situations like in COVID, when my contract basically extended a year, then, so that's that 2-year extension piece.
So if I may, I didn't come to understand what the rolling meant until we really kind of dug into it. So the way the 3-year current contract was, essentially at the end of every contract year, unless he was given notice of renewal, it automatically tacked another year.
Right.
So it could go on in perpetuity, and until you get that notice of non-renewal, it's 3 years, 3 years, 3 years. So So the change means that instead of a 4-year rolling, which would be 4 years, 4 years, 4 years, now there's an expiration date essentially of the 4 years. And if for some reason the board does not bring up a discussion before April 1st of 28 that we want to revisit the contract, there's an automatic 2-year extension which protects Russ in case the board doesn't do that before April 1st of 28. So you've got a clock ticking, which I like, instead of this 4-year rolling thing, because there's really no, as I put it, like, there's not really an incentive to necessarily perform if you know that you've always got 4 years of your contract left, even if, I don't think Mr. Saselski would do this, but in theory, a superintendent could say, okay, I'm checked out, and then, they get a bad performance evaluation, you say you're not gonna renew, and they still got, 4 years left in the rolling now, so we cut that out. So that's what I like about it.
So in your mind, this is actually a better deal for the board on this
Yes.
issue?
Yep.
Okay, very good. I can live with that. The salary compensation going a 3-year, 2% bump each year. Not too bad. I mean, I like it, but I'm just afraid that the 3rd year right now, I don't really want to commit to a 3rd year at 2%. Just because I'm not sure we can do
Just
that.
for clarification, with the 4 years, it's, because again, with ORS and some of the lawsuits, there is a salary schedule and it's at 2% every year. So in this particular, it'd be each year for 4 years, it would be a 2% increase.
So that's committing us to as much as 8%.
Potentially, over a 4-year period.
Again, based on some of the financials I've seen regarding other negotiations, concerned about whether that money will be there for that. And that's the only downside to that, I guess. The 2%, I don't have a problem with.
Yeah, and I think when you look at it with regard to this particular position, though, too, you have to consider it's one district position, and if you look at that percent over like what other county superintendents are making, even at the end of that 8 years, that's not even gonna, we probably couldn't hire somebody in 8 years for what that salary will be. And whether we like it or don't like it, it is what it is.
Yeah, Mr. Murphy, when we looked at the other salaries of the other superintendents, it was essentially fell right kind of in line with where other compensation packages were for superintendents in similar districts. So it was right there in line with when we looked at the other salaries.
And then the idea of moving the auto rate from outside to inside the compensation number, that basically is a retirement boost thing?
Yes,
So
sir.
that's what, yeah, I figured. So that's a gimme on our part that we're giving to us, so,
Well, it's not costing the district anymore. It's just coming different out
You're
of
right.
his end.
You're right,
Yeah.
it's not, but it's a perk that he's getting benefit from, and we're giving it to him. So I don't necessarily have a problem with that, because like you said, it doesn't cost us any more as a district, but it is a perk to the employee. And I'm sorry, when I look at Mr. Selski's employee, he's an employee just like every other employee in this district. And I'm not gonna downsize other employees just for the benefit of one. So, like I said, bottom line is, I'm concerned about what we're gonna be able to package to everybody. And so, these issues about creating this guarantee of 8% over the next 4 years versus guarantee of 6% if we stay with a 3-year rolling, to me is a concern. That to me says you need to be comfortable with committing 8% around the district for 4 years as a compensation package to
Yeah.
everybody.
Mr. Murphy, I just want to make sure, and Mr. Montague does a good job of explaining this, because he had to explain it to me as well, but again, with that rolling, that's not a protection to the district. That's not going to be our better move is to go with a fixed contract, because rolling would mean that after a year, 2 years, it just keeps adding on, and if Mr. Saselski decided to, if we decided we needed to part ways, like the severance the district would have to pay out could potentially be up to 3 years versus a hard cutoff.
But it's commitment, you're gonna have to live with this commitment of money to an employee.
A neighboring district and make more money, and we would be able to hire somebody into Linden, brand new to this district, for what we're currently compensating him.
Well, I don't think you want to consider our other employees any less highly effective.
And this isn't comparing to any other employees, this is, we're looking at one contract right now, which is basically the chief academic officer of our.
And one contract impacts other contracts. That's the bottom line.
Steve, just real quick, the 2%.
Mhm.
When you think about it, that's, you mentioned the perception to other district employees.
Mhm.
That's one of the selling points for me.
Oh,
It's the 2%, that's pretty reasonable.
I think it is too. I do too. But, I just want to make sure it's available for everybody. Where you're down the road, 8%, at least.
It's not 1%. It's 2% a year.
Yeah, 8% after 4 years.
No. It's 2% a year.
Yeah,
Like,
accumulating to an 8% increase.
no,
over.
you don't accumulate, you do not accumulate contracts. It's year over year over year.
Yeah.
It's a 2% per year contract.
And Steve, just so you know,
Yeah.
and I spoke to this during my last contract,
Mm-hmm.
I'm very comfortable, as I have been, since I was hired in 2017, that there have been groups that have gotten a lot more than I have in that time period as far as their percent increase.
I guess I don't remember that, but okay, let's.
Yeah, we talked about it back in my last contract. And I can tell you, LEA's received a total of 10.75 increase on and off scale since 2017. And my base salary, that's really been it, is only increased 7.4% since 2017.
Right. But there's a value to everything we do for your contract when we bump it, and that's what I'm not.
Correct.
I'm not sure I understand the total dollar value when I see an annuity bump of 2%. When I see longevity added 7 and 10-year points. And when we talk about the vacation days, big catch up. And all those things have values, and I don't see a total value to that attached to it. So, again, that's the only concern I have. It doesn't look like a lot, but I don't know what it is. And I don't know when other employees come asking for things that I can say, well, we didn't give out any other contracts that exceed this amount. So, I'm sure this is going to pass. So I'm just saying is, I'm concerned about long-term finances of the district. I'm kind of optimistic too, because there's things like amount of school aid fund is a relatively good, stable number. What's decreasing is the amount of students dividing into that number. So that should lend for bumps in per student aid if the government doesn't shortchange us. And if that all happens, and we don't lose a percentage-wise bigger than any other district around the state, or roughly speaking, then we kind of stay status quo. And it gives us the money to kind of pay for things that we don't think we're going to have right now, because it's not guaranteed. But so I love the 2%. Just these other things, which again, there's no total dollar value to them, roughly speaking. Like I said, if the 3-year rolling to a 4-year rolling with 4-year with a 2-year extension possible, that's a better deal for the district, then thank you very much. But we are giving some other things here, so I guess I don't have reason to vote no on it, but I have a concern. Thank you.
Mr. Henry?
Sure. I want to assure you that I think between Jared, myself, and Mr. Maker, that everything that was presented to us, Russ does a really nice job of providing counts, if you will. Counts with other areas, superintendents, that 6 to 8%, things like that. That's still below par for what a lot of superintendents are at. And it's an awkward position to be in. To the guy that's protecting the district, now he's got to think a little bit selfishly, and it's not selfish. But at the same token, the big ticket items that we really worked on collectively, I'm from my perspective, I'm okay throwing in some of that inconsequential $2,000-3,000 here and there, as long as we have some other languages that we've worked on as well, including that 4-year period contract with that 2 extension that in our opinion, protected the district's best interest. In my opinion, this all starts with what's fair and reasonable. I can promise you that the things that were presented and discussed and what we're probably about to vote on is very fair and very reasonable. So that's just my perspective.
Any other questions or comments? I guess I just want to also mention before we do a vote that a contract is 2 ways, right? And so even though we're saying yes for another 4 years, Russ is also saying yes to Linden for another 4 years, which we should be very grateful for as a district to have someone of his leadership ability leading our district. So with that, it has been moved and supported to approve the superintendent contract as presented. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, that winds up all of our activities for this evening. So at 9:32, we stand adjourned.